It was a somber atmosphere at the late night shows.
Our condolences go out to his family and all of his loved ones. And I pray with all my heart that this is the aberrant action of a madman and not a sign of things to come.
Joining us now to analyze the coverage. In New York, Ari Fleischer, Fox News contributor and former White House spokesman. And with me, Meghan Hayes, top official in the Biden White House. Ari, we're hearing a lot from the parties and across the media about the horrors of this political assassination. And of course, you were press secretary on 9/11. And look where we are now. Is there any way to stop this kind of domestic terrorism that's become so frequent?
Well, that's such a big societal question. Is there any way to stop? How do you stop hate and violence that springs from somebody's heart, especially if it comes from political motives? Look, all I know how to do is control myself, and I try to communicate in a moderated tone. I never seek to assume the worst in the political people that I battle. I always try to assume the best. I assume they love our country too, but they're wrong. And that's how I try to communicate. I try to attack ideas, not people. I wish other people behave like that, but we have a very noisy democracy. We always have. It can never, ever be a violent democracy. And we don't really need the politicians to say that. We all know they know how to say the right thing if they want to. We need everybody to stop saying the wrong thing, which can incentivize crazy people to engage in violence.
You're always very measured, and I think that was Charlie Kirk's philosophy too. He'd talk to anyone. Meghan, you have people like George Conway, ex-husband of Kellyanne, is getting hammered on social media for comparing Charlie Kirk to a particular young Nazi from the 1930s, complete with picture.
I mean, that's just gross and disgusting. It's unnecessary. Charlie Kirk is well within his rights to have his own opinions, whether you agreed with him or not. Those are his opinions, and he's free to say that. That freedom and democracy is what makes our country special. And the fact that we are being held hostage by the extremes and these people who are mentally unwell, it's really unfortunate for our democracy.
Ari, I did a little digging, and there's been 47 school shootings so far this year. I don't know about most of them because, unfortunately, tragically, so in a heartbreaking fashion, it's become part of our daily life. And, you see a lot of people come out and say this must never happen again, but law enforcement and, security can't be everywhere at all times. And so I'm wondering whether there needs to be a different approach. Like, should anybody be able to walk into a school without going through a metal detector, as you have to do on Capitol Hill and elsewhere?
Well, Howie, I think you got to make a separation here between crimes that are obvious craziness, somebody who would go into a school and shoot children, what inspired them, and crimes against people in political elected life. It's so much more clear that a crime against somebody in politics, it may be inspired by a crazy person, as in the case of the shooting of Ronald Reagan, but it also logically has something to do with politics. You wanted to put an end to that person's political career, and therefore it is proper and wise to diligently pursue whether there's a political motive when somebody shoots a political figure. I don't say the same thing about school shootings. I think that's usually lunacy. Sometimes it might be anti-religious, and if there's a tie of where the lunatics have something in common, we need to know that too. But I still want to know what the motive of this shooter of Charlie Kirk was, and there's increasing evidence that it was tied potentially to his roommate and his defending his roommate who was a trans. Now, we need to know this, and I want to see a serious pursuit of the motive of this killer.
Meghan, do the media need to know this? Whether the report is that he was rooming with a transgender person, or is that just something to glom onto because then we can blame it on the other side? I said earlier, all Democrats are out for murder, that kind of like painting with a broad brush.
I don't necessarily think we need to know the murder. I think he was mentally unstable, and I think he committed murder, which is horrendous and unnecessary on a basic level. But I think that we're always going to find people who don't like our views, whether or not they're moderate, whether or not they're left, or whether or not they're to the right. I got a threat on Friday. I'm a very moderate Democrat who comes on Fox, who comes on all the stations.
Yes.
And it's very moderate. I should not be getting threats in my social media, but we do. I'm sure you get
stuff
literally on Friday. I'm sure you get them, and we all get them. I don't care what their motives are. They shouldn't be violent. It shouldn't matter. You should have the freedom to say what you want to say. That's end of story. That's our democracy.
Well, of course, you should have the freedom to say anything you want to say, but knowing the motive is essential. You have to know the motive of a killer in any crime, whether it's a street crime, a drug-related crime, or the killing of a public political figure.
That's a debate that I think we are not hearing the end of. But I do want to move on now to Kamala Harris's forthcoming book, 107 Days, excerpt published by The Atlantic, talking about Joe Biden running. In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. But at 81, Joe got tired. That's when his age showed in physical and verbal stumbles. Ari.
Yeah, this is part of the cover-up. You know, if Kamala Harris believed that, then she had an obligation to go public and say, Joe Biden should not run for re-election. Instead, she just married herself to the ticket, defended President Biden at the time, and vouched for how healthy he was, only now to tell us he clearly was in decline. He wasn't healthy enough to run and to win. So why did she cover that up when she was a sitting vice president? And don't tell me it's loyalty, because that's false loyalty. If you have a person running for president who is not up to doing the job physically, that's what a vice president should blow the whistle on and engage in other Democrats and make Biden step down before he failed at a debate and was forced to step down.
Let me first briefly ask you, Megyn. It doesn't sound like tremendous loyalty right now. And, you know, you worked on the campaign and then you worked in the Biden White House the first time. To say things like reckless and an individual's ego. So is this the break it seems to be?
So I think a couple of things. I think she wants to be able to write her narrative. A lot of these books are coming out, and a lot of there's criticism. She gets to write her own narrative here. So I think that's also important. But I also think that it's important to acknowledge the fact that if she would have said these things during the campaign, the outcome of the campaign could have been different, might have been different.
Was it politically possible for her to say these things during the campaign?
But that's what we want from our leaders. We want them to be honest and truthful. And so I feel like if she had that to say, she should have said it then, and she should have made distinctions between when she went on The View, there was a very distinct, I don't think he should have done anything different. And now you're saying he should. And I think we need to expect more from our leaders. They need to be able to speak truth to power.
All right, I've got half a minute. Some unnamed Biden aides are pushing back, saying, look, she did a lousy job, and she was obsessed with things like being on the cover of Vogue, if we can put that up. All right.
Yeah, the tension between the Biden camp and the Harris camp inside the White House is palpable. And that's unfortunate. And I think it's a reflection of that Joe Biden picked the wrong person for the wrong reasons when he put her on the ticket. And the team inside never got over that. As somebody who does believe that presidents and vice presidents should work well together, I don't like to see this infighting. But again, the right thing to do was for her to quietly, ahead of time, gone to many Democrats and worked with them to say he shouldn't even think about running for re-election. Democrats should have gone through a primary. Would have been much better for them.
In retrospect, I think you are right.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.